go. Come on, live. Let's do it. All right. We are live. We are back here. It's so good to have you, right? Like, it's fun to do this kind of stuff. It's fun to get on and have these conversations that feel really good and talk to people who are just cool and have interesting perspectives on life and work and all that kind of stuff. So today, we are going to be talking about this intersection of the personal and professional in your branding. Now, I really love this subject because it's messy. And I have a tendency to think that the messy things are the best things. They're the great things, and the story of who you are, your values, your experience has this really strong and important role to play in the work that you do and the brand that develops either out of that or intentionally develops through that. So all of it is a part of the uniqueness that you bring to the work that you do. And it helps to build that know, like, and trust factor. And this merging of the personal and the professional, at least in my life, has happened a bit out of necessity. I'm as a single parent, right? I've always been kind of unapologetic about the fact that my kid was just going to be around, right? They were just going to be with me when I do stuff because partly I wanted to, but partly I also didn't always have a choice. So they would be hanging out doing homework at the office or, at events with me, or at one point in time I ran a music venue. And so they would be in the box office, like helping the box office staff. So in my work with entrepreneurs and in communities, people just knew that my kid was there. They knew my kid's name and they knew some of my story because of that. And unintentionally, it illustrated my values and a people first approach to the work. So we are all humans first and entrepreneurs after, and it became a part of this brand of mine, even if it wasn't necessarily an intentional thing. So welcome back to the Impact in Action conversation series, where we talk with leaders and entrepreneurs about the mindset shifts and the tactical approaches that are going to help you put your impact into action. Now, my name is Maryann Lombardi, and I am the CEO of Maryann Lombardi Coaching, and I work with women and non-binary entrepreneurs to help them ditch the work-life battle lie so they can build a profitable business that is in alignment with the life that they really choose to live. And I am really excited that Tara Gooch is here to participate in this conversation with us. She is a branding and mindset expert, and she's kind of a cool ass person, which always helps. So she's going to help us navigate the blurred lines of this personal and professional in our branding, how we establish boundaries and maximize our exposure. So let's bring Tara on in here and get ourselves started. Tara, there you are. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Maryann.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. So tell me, how is it that you got into the branding game?
Wow, it's a loaded question. Just kidding. Well, so it was just earlier this year, in March of 2022, I ditched the corporate gig full-time and decided to go full-time entrepreneur. So my business officially started during COVID, so June of 2020. And my husband had actually been been a graphic designer for 20 years and has taught branding, marketing, advertising at the college level for about 17 years. So he has taught a whole host of designers and branding experts. And during 2020, I said, we really need to capitalize on this, right? We really need to put this under the umbrella of an LLC. At the time, I was getting my MBA and just super passionate about business, wanted to try something new. So, yeah, we started with working more with companies. And then I realized, as we were talking to the executives and the owners and the leaders of these companies, that they either didn't have an online presence or it was pitiful. So, and there are these same people asking me and telling me that they can't find talent, that they're having trouble with the culture of their company, that people are leaving, that they can't retain people. They can't attract or retain. And it clicked. And I made the realization at that time that when you develop a personal brand as a leader, as anybody, but especially as an executive leader, you're developing a culture. You're reaching people. You're becoming omnipresent. You're able to comment on other people's posts. They're able to comment on yours. And what ends up happening is it's an attraction mechanism for the right people to work for you. And it's been an interesting journey working with these executives, but it's a long story short, kind of. But that's how I started, and really found my niche of working with executives as well as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, when you in working with folks, what do you find is the biggest misconception around what branding actually is?
Oh gosh, there's so many, but people, it's kind of an ambiguous term, personal branding. What does it mean? It's people so many times associate branding with only a company can have a brand, only a business. And they forget that you're a person first. So no matter what position you are in your company, people, Maryann, as you know, people buy from other people. People don't buy from faceless companies anymore. People want to know who they're buying from. They want to be inspired by the leaders of an organization, and they want to feel like they're buying from somebody they know. Because when you buy from somebody you automatically have a trust, right? So,
Mhm.
one of the bigger misconceptions that I faced in the beginning was why is it even beneficial to have a personal brand, especially if you're a CEO of a company? Like, what's the point, right? Why differentiate yourself? Trust me, anyone can benefit from having a personal brand because it differentiates you from everyone else. And on a platform like LinkedIn, where there's over 800 million people globally, if you don't have a developed personal brand, it's click on to the next, right?
Yeah,
You get 7 seconds at a first impression, seven
right.
seconds to either change your life or to miss an opportunity.
Mm. Yeah, I'm interested in how you start those conversations with folks who may be reluctant or fearful of the exposure, because in many ways, like, that branding is exposure. It is showing yourself, your face, your life, your who you are out into the world. And yes, you can have some control over what you do and don't share, but there's a lot of fear. There can be, maybe not for everybody, but there can be a lot of fear attached to that exposure. So how do you help people navigate some of that?
Yeah, such an interesting question, and that's why I started my work with mindset coaching right there. Because as I was working with people, I saw so many blocks. It was block after limiting belief after limiting belief. And just because someone is successful does not mean they don't have limiting beliefs. Trust me. Those sometimes can be some of the worst people with limiting beliefs and with a limited mindset. So building a personal brand, if you think of, okay, let's pick any company that would, if I was Coca-Cola, and if I was afraid, and if I became afraid and said, oh gosh, what if there's bad publicity? Well, then you're going to go off into irrelevance real quick, because Pepsi's going to come out and they're going to increase their marketing and advertising dollars and dominate, right? Or whoever. So the last thing you want to do as a business is to hide. So why would the first thing you do as a person think the best thing to do is to hide and to stay off in a corner and not be seen or heard for the rest of my life? That's a great way to slip off into irrelevancy really quick. So with personal branding comes a lot of mindset coaching as well, because it can be scary, especially if you've been kind of, sheltered off for a while. It can be scary to share information, but the biggest attraction mechanism that you can have is to share some failures, is to share some bad experiences, because that resonates with people. Everybody's had a failure.
Mhm.
When I share failures, and I'm open about it now on social media, you wouldn't believe the love, support, and reciprocity that I get in return, and it really is amazing. I've gotten clients based on sharing stories of failures.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to that idea of understanding that we're human because it is so easy
Yeah.
within this a social media space to just see a picture or a story and just think, okay, yeah, that's great, and maybe there's some aspirationalness in there, but you just don't. There's a distance between us,
Yeah.
and that those failures or those honest moments or that kind of life stuff makes you human, and we tend to forget that we're all just freaking human,
Yes.
so yeah, that's really great. If you're working with an entrepreneur, like, let's bring it back to those individual entrepreneurs. Maybe they're a solopreneur. They are just jumping out, not unlike you or myself, jumping out of a corporate or an executive environment, jumping into running a business full time. What usually are your first, when they come to you, your first advice for them to help building that online presence? Because if they don't really have an online presence already, you know, building that brand, how do they start doing that, right? Like, how do they just, what's the first thing that they do so they don't get overwhelmed by the process?
Absolutely. So one of the first things, and everybody is always like, our human brains are the way our minds work. We're so, how do I do this? What are the steps? And you get confused. It's a little discombobulating, right? Because you're trying to think of all these steps and what do I do? The steps take care of themselves when you show up. Okay. So the first thing that a leader needs to do, regardless of if you're a solo entrepreneur or whatever, is to show up and make an active presence through that repetition. Again, if nobody knows you exist, how could they buy from you? Why would they want to? That repetition of showing up and building a community is the absolute first thing you need to do. And it doesn't matter if you're turning on LinkedIn for the first time and just now signing in, build a profile that looks reputable. Okay. So start there. Build a solid profile. Because again, you have 7 seconds at a first impression. And if your profile stinks and there's no picture or there's no personalization to it at all, why in the heck would I connect with that person? Right? I don't know if that's a real person or not.
Right.
So, step one, you absolutely have to put some time into your profile, period. And when you do that, again, people will want to connect with you because they're going to see that, oh, this person actually took some investment. So, while they may not have any more than 5 connections, it looks like they're trying and they're working towards something.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like making sure that visibility is about showing your face,
Yeah,
showing like what it is you do, who you are. I would imagine people they may know. I find this very interesting when I work with clients. This idea of values, right? Like, everybody thinks they know their values, right? Like, oh, of
yeah,
course I have values. I know my values, but then when they have to put them down or write them or talk about them, that gets a lot more complicated. And so I can imagine in branding, the understanding of your values and being able to communicate your values either directly or through your content is something that everybody has to learn, right?
right. Yep. And that's, it's where it starts right there. Exactly. Knowing who you are. My gosh. So what I do, I take my clients 4 questions. One of them is really simple. Who are you? It's 3 words. But when, just like what you
Simple and
said,
complicated, right?
yeah,
Simple and complicated.
it sounds so simple, but now really sit and reflect. Okay. Who are you? What is your purpose on this earth right now? Why are you here? So many people don't know their purpose. Well, if you don't know your purpose, how can you drive a result? You're not
Yeah.
going to have intentful actions because there is no defined purpose. So, the first step to knowing who you are is figuring out why you're here on this earth. there is a purpose for everyone. I do believe that. And when you go on a personal branding journey, it's not just about, branding, it's an experience, right? It's more than a logo, it's more than a color scheme or typography. Branding is an experience. And when you have a personal brand, that experience allows others to connect with you and to understand you because they get to be aligned with your purpose and they get to go on that same journey with you. And it's an invitation. It's like, reaching your hand out to an audience that's super wide and saying, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and these are my core values. It's an attraction mechanism for the
Yeah.
right people. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I always talk to clients about the fact that it's hard to know what you want when you don't know who you are, and it's
Yeah.
hard to know what to do when you don't know what you want.
Yeah.
Right. So it starts at that place of like, who are you? Like, and even if that's who are you right now today, you may change, that may change over time, but trying to get in touch with understanding who you are in this moment will allow you to get to, well, what the heck do I want? And I think often for women or gender nonconforming people that the act of really thinking and owning what do I want is a radical act, because so often you aren't asked, what do you want? Like, truly, what do you want? Right? Like, that's just not something that you are often asked or ask of yourself. So it's always a really powerful conversation to have with clients around, like, no, let's get at it. What
Yeah,
the heck do you want?
absolutely. If you don't have that definiteness and that clarity of your vision, and I recently had a conversation with a VP at one of America's largest mortgage companies just this week. And we talked about this exact same topic. And, we talked about the first thing is getting really super, super clear on what you want, right? Because a lot of times people, they get so upset they're not reaching their goals and their objectives or succeeding the way they thought they would. But have they taken the time to really narrow it down and get absolute clarity on what it is they truly do want? Because if you don't do that, what it's going to set you up for is, even if that thing came to you, would you acknowledge it or even see it?
Yeah, no, I think that's really smart. And I bet that shows up in their goals too, right? Because if you're setting goals that are not attached to what it is that you truly want, it's hard to reach those goals because you're not driving towards anything specific. And so it can get really muddy, and the muddy makes it very, very difficult.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to leave folks with something tactical they can do. Well, obviously, as we've talked about, first, they need a profile that has their picture and some brief information about who they are and what they do. But once they do that, what is your one piece of advice for folks for navigating the intersection of that personal and professional, right? Like, if they're really trying to if they're struggling to figure out, well, like, this is like, how do I know what of me to share and what of me not to share? How do we help people really figure out that piece of it?
That balance.
That balance, man, because like it's a
Yeah.
something.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. It's a balance. I mean, everyone has their own personal brand journey, and some people are naturally more inclined to share more than others. I tend to be a little bit more closed off and guarded sometimes, and I've let it I've allowed myself to open up, and I look at it as you're a flower. So when you start your personal branding journey, you're a tiny bud, right? And then as you grow and as you get more comfortable with doing things like LinkedIn Lives, networking within your community, building trust and relationships like we're doing now, the flower starts to open up a little bit, right? And you start to see a little bit more of an in-depth version of what that flower looked like. Well, it's the same flower it's always been. That rose has always been looked exactly the same way. Now it's just open so you can see more aspects of it, more intricacies of it that you couldn't see before. So, as you're exposing yourself like we're doing right now, so many people are terrified, by the way, of LinkedIn Live. It gives them like so much chills. Gosh, they can't even get on a video or put a picture of themselves, let alone get on LinkedIn Live. So my first step, I would say for people is, share a picture. Start there. Baby step it up. Then do a video on your phone, upload it. Then do a LinkedIn Live, right? You don't have to go from one follower just turning on your LinkedIn profile to automatically jumping in on LinkedIn Live. You can baby step it and you can be gradual. And then as you progress during that personal brand journey, because that's what it is, it's a journey, it paves the way for you to share information that you feel comfortable sharing. Now, some people go all out and share, past traumas and things like that. And that's fine too, because you're attracting that type of person to network with you that maybe had a similar thing happen to them in their past. And all they ever wanted to know was that they weren't alone.
Yeah, that's really great advice, and I love what you're talking about taking it a step by step, because it's
Yeah.
easy to look at what everybody else is doing and go, "I have to do what everybody else is doing," as opposed to being like, "No, like, where are you today?
Yep.
And where are you tomorrow? And where are you the next day?" And sort of, do the journey, as you're saying. So it isn't just about you have to go from point 1 to what Tara's doing or what Maryann's doing. It's just you do you, and you
Mhm.
start where you are. I know for me, it took a minute to translate from coming out of a corporate, and for me, government environment, where who you are matters ish, right? Because what matters more is who you're serving and representing.
Yeah.
And so there were limits to what you really could talk about, especially when it came to social issues and stuff like that. And so I know it was a huge freedom to come out from under that, and just be like, fuck it, I'm a feminist. I look at this entrepreneurship world a certain way. And I think it matters that context is there, and like it's been a real relief to be able to do that. So I can imagine for folks that when they figure out that balance, like there's something about it that feels really good about being yourself.
That's right. And, people that think content creation is hard aren't being genuine to themselves. I
Mm.
wake up in the morning and I'm inspired by something. There is something that is inspiring me by 9 o'clock that just urges me to write a piece of content, do a video, whatever. Figure out that again, when you really figure out and define your purpose, your core values, what you believe in, who you really are as a person, it writes itself
Yeah.
because you're inspired to live.
Yeah, no, no, no. That's so good. And it goes back to this idea that those foundations are the key. And I think a lot of times people jump to the tactics, right? Like they jump to, oh, I have to create a reel because that's what's important, or I have to do a LinkedIn Live, or I have to do the tactic. But they haven't spent the time to figure out, like, no, like to your point, what do you want? Who are you? What are your values? What do you stand for? Because then once you know those things, what's your purpose? The content is a heck of a lot easier.
Yes. So
Yeah.
much, so much. It really does write itself because again, how can you not be inspired when you're living and aligned with your purpose?
Yeah.
So the first thing you need to do is figure out who you are, and then everything else kind of just falls in afterwards. But that's when you attract the right people to you, not just everybody. You attract
Yeah.
the right people when you are genuine to yourself. And that's the power of personal branding. It's not just about graphics or design, it's an experience. And you want the people that interact with your profile to go on there and have an experience. And there needs to be some type of an attraction mechanism to it that says, I should connect with this person. I should follow this person. I should message this person. I have gotten business deals because of my content on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
because of commenting on other people's posts. I mean, it can really happen. And you have to have a strategy based on who you are. And once you do that, everything else kind of happens and unfolds.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, number one, make sure that you have a picture on your profile and that you're actually providing information about who you are on that profile and what you do. And previous to that, really do the work to understand who you are and what you want and take the time to do that. How do people find you? How can they connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, no, always connect with me on LinkedIn. I've almost got 28,000 followers, so I hope to get to 28,000. My goal is by the end of this weekend to hit 28,000. I've got a LinkedIn program online that I'm working on that's all about personal branding on LinkedIn. So you can go from zero to hero very quickly with my methodologies and strategies. But I'm going to teach people how to do everything. So this is going to set everybody up for so much success. But you can find me on LinkedIn and you can visit my website, bestbranding.solutions.
Oh, I love it. Well, Tara, thank you so much for spending a little time with us. And everybody, let's get her to that 28. Let's do it. We can do it. We can make it happen.
You can do it.
All right, all. I will see you next week for the Master Your Money Masterclass. So make sure you show up. We're going to be talking about how to ditch the mindset traps that are getting in the way of you earning your revenue, and also how to make sure that your profit plan is right size so you can double your sales in the next 90 days. So join me, people, there to have a good time and learn some shit. So we will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.